My name is Muriel. I'm 65 years old. My husband passed away 4 years ago, and I've been living alone in a small house in Salem, Oregon, the place we used to call our final nest. The house isn't big, but it's quiet, clean, and familiar. I grow vegetables in the backyard, take care of a cat named Peanut, and live off my pension and the savings I collected back when I worked as an accountant for a construction company. My daughter, Mabel, moved out when she was 22. She got married, had a son named Liam, and got divorced when the boy was just 3. Since then, Mabel has been raising her son alone in Portland, about a 2-hour drive from me. We keep in touch, but not very often. Each year, she only visits a few times, usually on holidays or for my birthday. One early morning in March, while I was watering the garden, the phone rang. It was Mabel. Her voice sounded gentler than usual. She started with a few familiar questions. "How are you, Mom? Are you still eating regularly?" Then quickly got to the point. "Mom, I've been thinking a lot. Maybe you should come live with me and Liam. My house is big enough. I worry about you living alone." I was a little surprised. Mabel had never made such a suggestion before. I stayed silent for a few seconds, then asked, "Why do you suddenly want me to move in?" Mabel answered immediately, "I just think you seem lonely living by yourself. I'm busy working all day, and no one's there to help with Liam. He really loves having you around. I feel like maybe living together would be better for everyone." I told her I'd think about it. That night, I couldn't sleep. Partly because of the surprise, partly because I did feel lonely sometimes. I had gotten used to living alone, but deep down, I did wish there was someone to talk to in the evenings, to share a meal or a laugh with. And I wanted to be closer to my grandson, the boy I only saw a few times each year. 2 days later, I called her back. I said yes. We planned for the move over the next 3 weeks. I packed up my things, sold some old furniture, brought only what I needed, and left the house keys with a trusted neighbor. When Mabel came to pick me up, she smiled wider than usual, opened her car trunk, and said, "Welcome, Mom." I didn't overthink it. At that moment, I just felt a bit lighter. I believed this would be a good beginning for me, my daughter, and my grandson. The first days in Portland passed by relatively smoothly. Mabel lived in a 2-story house in the suburbs, about a 30-minute drive from downtown. The house had 3 bedrooms, one for Mabel, one for Liam, and one that was cleaned out and set up for me. It wasn't big, but it was tidy enough. I brought along a few family photos, an old porcelain teapot, and some cookbooks, small things, but they helped me feel a bit more at home in this new space. Mabel worked as an accountant for a car dealership. Her job kept her busy. She usually left early and came home late. In the mornings, I took Liam to school. In the afternoons, I cooked dinner, cleaned up, and waited for them to come home and eat together. The boy was sweet, easy to be around, and always told stories from school when he got home. Time seemed to pass quickly, and I gradually began to feel more at ease. But only about 2 weeks later, I started to notice a few odd things. One evening, while the 3 of us were having dinner, Mabel asked casually, "Mom, do you still have that savings account at the old bank? The one in Salem?" I replied, "Yes. I still keep it there and check on it every now and then." She smiled and added, "I was just curious. Do you know your credit score? I'm thinking about applying for a loan to move into a new house, but my profile is a little weak." I hesitated slightly, then said, "I haven't checked recently. I don't really use it much, so I haven't paid attention." That was the end of it. I thought Mabel was just making small talk. But a few days later, while I was cleaning the living room, I noticed a file left open on the table. On top was a mortgage loan application, with my name listed as the borrower. I didn't touch it, just glanced. My full name, date of birth, social security number, all correct. The handwriting wasn't mine, but the signature line was still blank. That night, I brought it up with her. "Mabel, I saw a mortgage loan application on the table. Why is my name on it?" Mabel chuckled, not looking the slightest bit nervous. "Oh, I was just testing it out. I haven't submitted anything. I'm just trying to see if the bank would approve it faster if your name was on the application. No need to worry, Mom." Over the next few days, small things kept happening. Once, I overheard Mabel on the phone, her voice tense. If my mother agrees to be on the application, the loan could be approved within the month. Yes, I understand. I'll try to convince her. Another time, while I was making breakfast, she walked by and muttered, "If we had a bigger house, we could rent out an extra room. It wouldn't matter where Mom stays." I didn't respond. I washed my hands, poured some tea, and sat down as usual. But inside, the lightness I had felt during those first days was beginning to feel heavy. I started writing down everything I heard, everything I saw, day by day. In early April, I received an envelope from the bank where I had opened my retirement account. Inside was a notice confirming that a mortgage application was being reviewed, requesting additional income documents and property collateral papers. The borrower's name at the top of the file was mine. The property address listed was the house I was currently living in with my daughter. I held the letter and stared at the italicized words, "Mortgage application, borrower, Muriel Green." Fragments of earlier conversations echoed in my mind. I felt confused. I had never signed any papers. I had never given my consent. That evening, I didn't say anything to Mabel. After dinner, I made an excuse to go out and buy a few things, then drove straight to the house of an old friend named Ken, a former colleague of my late husband, now retired. He used to be a financial attorney. I brought the bank letter and a folder of documents I had secretly photocopied over the past few days. Ken looked through everything, sat quietly for a few minutes, then asked, "Muriel, are you absolutely sure you didn't sign anything?" I nodded. I didn't sign a thing. He looked at me, then spoke slowly. "The problem is, this mortgage application has already been submitted. Even though there's no final signature, all the personal information is complete. I'm afraid your daughter is trying to legitimize your name on the loan by formalizing the paperwork, and if the bank proceeds with a preliminary review, they might continue processing it unless you speak up." I sat in silence for a long time. I didn't know whether to feel angry, sad, or disappointed. I never imagined Mabel would do something like this after all the trust one had given her. That evening, I returned home late. Liam was already asleep. Mabel was sitting on the sofa, eyes glued to her laptop screen. I placed the bank envelope on the table and gently asked, "You submitted a loan application for the house, using my name, didn't you?" She froze for a second, then answered as if it were no big deal. "I was just testing if it could get approved. Your family, your credit is good. If you agree to be on the loan, it would really help me and Liam." I looked at my daughter. My voice wasn't loud, but it was firm. "I'm not a cosigner. I'm a retired woman. I can't take on a loan worth hundreds of thousands of dollars for a house I neither need nor want." Mabel's tone changed. She grew angry, raising her voice. "I'm your daughter. Can't you help just this once? A bigger house means you get to live more comfortably too. What are you holding on to? How many more years do you think you have left?" I stood up without answering. I walked into my room, closed the door, and sat quietly in the dark. The next morning, before the sun had fully risen, I got up and started packing. Not much, just a few changes of clothes, my tea box, a few books, and a photo of the family from when Mabel was young. I left a short handwritten note on the table. "I came here because I believed you needed me, but I didn't come to carry your debts. I still love you, but I need to leave before things go too far." I left the house at 6 a.m. The air was still chilly. I drove south, back to my old house in Salem, the one I once thought too empty to return to. But at least, it held no deceit. I returned to Salem on a Friday morning. The small road leading into my old neighborhood was still lined with red maple trees, and my old house stood there, quiet, a little more worn, but familiar like an old friend that had never held a grudge. I called Mrs. Ellen, my longtime neighbor, and asked if she still had the key. She said she had kept the house clean, watered the plants, and even had someone mow the lawn now and then, just in case Muriel wanted to come back one day. During the first week back, I slowed everything down. Each morning, I woke up early, made tea, and sat in the garden reading the paper. I didn't reach out to Mabel, and she didn't call either. Liam, however, sent me a short email, asking if I was okay and why I had disappeared without saying anything. I replied to the boy with a simple note. "I'm doing fine. If you ever want to visit, I'm always here. But sometimes, grown-ups have to deal with their own matters. In the afternoons, I visited Ken, my old lawyer friend. I asked him to review my banking records and send an official letter to cancel any loan applications made under my name. We also worked with the bank to place a note on file. Muriel Green, do not authorize anyone, including family members, to use my information for any financial transactions of any kind. Ken recommended that I temporarily freeze my credit as a precaution. He also advised me to open a separate account at a different bank, completely detached from any information Mabel might know. I handled everything step by step, without rushing. I didn't speak badly about my daughter to anyone. I didn't bring it up at church, and I didn't post anything online. I kept everything within the necessary boundaries, legally correct, enough to protect myself, no more, no less. A few weeks later, I signed up for a book club for retired women. Every Monday, I went to the library and started learning how to use a tablet to read ebooks. One time, I had coffee with a group of women around my age. They shared stories of being taken advantage of, kids using their credit cards, being pressured to sell homes, or being ignored after moving in with their children. One afternoon in May, while I was watering the garden, I received a handwritten letter from Liam. Inside was a crayon drawing of a grandma and grandson reading a book together, along with a note. I don't understand what happened, but I want to see you again. Do you still have the cat named Peanut? I smiled. I took the drawing and pinned it to the fridge. Peanut, the old cat, still curled up in my lap like always. My world had settled again. 3 weeks after that drawing letter, I received a call from an unfamiliar number. It was Liam. He spoke softly, his voice hesitant. He asked if I could pick him up from school one Friday afternoon. Mabel had an unexpected meeting, and Liam missed me. I heard his voice, still childlike, still sincere. I said yes. That afternoon, I drove to the elementary school gate in Portland. It had been nearly 2 months since I last left that house. When Liam saw me, he ran up and hugged me tightly, without asking anything. We sat at a nearby park, ate ice cream, and told each other little stories. He shared that he was about to start swimming lessons and wanted to learn piano this year. I asked him if he was doing okay, and he nodded. But then he hesitated. Grandma, Mom said you're mad and don't want to see her anymore. Is that true? I stayed silent for a few seconds, then replied, I'm not mad. Liam didn't say anything. He looked at me, then pulled out a folded comic book from his backpack. On one side was a story page. On the other was a new letter. Don't be sad, Grandma. I don't know why grown-ups make mistakes, but I think anyone can start over. If you write to Mom, maybe she'll understand. I didn't answer right away. I just said, I'll think about it. The following week, I wrote a handwritten letter to Mabel. I didn't blame her. I simply explained that I had changed my account numbers, closed my old credit lines, and would no longer put my name on any loans. I said I was still her mother, but one who would not allow herself to be taken advantage of, who couldn't love blindly without boundaries. At the end of the letter, I wrote, If you want to see me, just to have tea and talk, without any conditions, I'll be waiting. I didn't receive a reply. At the end of that summer, I joined a public talk at the city library titled Retired Women and Financial Independence. I shared my story, not to complain, but so that other women, other mothers, other grandmothers would understand. Living with your children doesn't mean taking on all their consequences. I ended the talk with a quote from an old journal I kept. Between love and family, there must be boundaries. When you're brave enough to say no, you're teaching others how to treat you right.